There's a lot to this story, but the nuts and bolts of it. So this is the United Automobile, bunch of A's, Aerospace, Agricultural Workers of America. So UAW members a John Deere strike for improved standard of living, retirement benefits, and a better work environment. So they started the strike at midnight today after the company failed to present an agreement that met members' demands and needs. Our members at John Deere strike for the ability to earn a decent living, retire with dignity, and establish fair work rules, said Chuck Browning, Vice President and Director of the UAW's Agricultural Implement Department. We stay committed to bargaining until our members' goals are achieved. UAW President Ray Curry said the almost 1 million UAW retirees and active members stand in solidarity with the striking UAW members at John Deere. So this I find striking, and this kind of sums up why these folks are striking. Profits at John Deere have skyrocketed by some 61% in recent years, while its CEO's salary has exploded by 160% since the start of the pandemic. Please do not tell me they cannot afford to pay their workers fairly. I am proud to stand in solidarity with the UAW members on strike. And so, for a little bit more context, for anyone just catching up on the 10,000 worker UAW strike at John Deere, here's how you can get up to speed. So, Jonah Furman at Labor Notes has been doing a fantastic job of following this even before it made big news. So, as we scroll down, the history of this strike puts everything into context. So in early September, Deere presented a disastrously bad first offer to the membership. They likely wanted to lower expectations by super lowballing them, but ended up pissing everybody off. And members authorized a strike by 99%. Imagine how much it takes to get a group of people to agree to something at a 99% rate.
Well, especially here in the United States, where it's like we have a system set up that it's not easy for people to strike, and that's by
Yeah.
design. I mean, so many
Mm-hmm.
people they're one paycheck away from missing rent or not being able
Absolutely.
to get groceries. So people are scared to strike. So yeah, you have to really, really piss people off. Where 99% of them, I mean, I don't. If there were 100 workers, one guy was like, I don't know, I'm kind of freaking nervous.
Right.
I really do. We want to risk Taco Tuesdays, and everyone else is like, "Fuck you, buddy." We're oh,
Taco
sorry. Are we allowed?
Tuesdays.
Are we allowed to curse here?
Oh,
I shouldn't.
yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. You can.
But yeah.
Colin's become very adept at bleeping Jordan's curses, for
Oh,
example.
okay. All right. Fair
When
enough.
he
Well,
does
sorry, Colin.
no, yeah, when he does the clips later. So it's all good.
I got you.
So the number goes down a little bit as we go through, like from the 99%, but it's still very high. You guys will see. So they get to the edge of a strike on October 1st, but at the very last second, the UAW and Deere announced an extension, averting a strike and further pissing off members. Then a tentative agreement that they wouldn't let anyone see for a week. Continuing down on Sunday, so meaning this past Sunday, members shocked both the union and the company by rejecting the contract by a whopping 90%, with 90% of members voting. This seems to have been a wake-up call to the UAW, who quickly announced a strike deadline of tonight. And by the way, we won't get into this today, but there are some issues that some of these workers have with the UAW itself, including, voting in leaders, etc., which is a whole other issue. Just because it's union doesn't mean it's perfect. So 90% with 90% of members voting is still incredibly enormous. So there are about 10,000 workers on strike right now, which, historically John Deere has gone on strike, but that was decades ago. And so this is something new. What's your first kind of take about this, Ron, about the fact that this is happening?
Well, I mean, my first take is that this is awesome, and I'm glad that it's getting a lot of press. And I mean, there were so many. I mean, Nabisco went on strike, Kellogg's is going on strike. The stage workers here, a lot of it's in LA, they're going on strike. So there's a lot of strikes happening. And I also want to mention, they mentioned how they felt like the UAW, the leadership at the top, wasn't really having their back. As leftists in the United States, I mean, I am very pro union, except for cops, because every rule has
Yes.
its exception. But
Mhm.
for the most part, I am very pro union. However, we do have to recognize that for a very long time in this country, going back to, years before you and I were born, Jen, there
Mhm.
has been a very concentrated effort to defang unions in this country and to reduce membership. And we have low membership of unions throughout the United States. And a lot of times the people at the top are kind of just looking out for the company, not the people. There's still great unions despite all that in the United States. There still are, but there's definitely some corruption going on at the top, and that's very deliberate. And that was through a 60-year effort. I mean, they really started this in the 60s, and they've seen a lot of success, unfortunately. So I think that we really need to make it clear in our messaging that we are pro union because we know what a union can be and we know what a union should be. And part of the mission is not just to get more membership in unions, but also to foster the good unions and reclaim what it means to be a union and force the bad ones out. So I think that is an important part of the conversation that we need to address, because you'll get met with, and I've gotten this myself. I mean, a guy who I know in my personal life, he was in this union for, I believe it was hotel workers, and they rolled over and they told them, "Hey, you either get health care or a 401k. You don't get both." What do you mean you don't get
Mm.
both as a worker? And that sours people on unions. People don't see that as, oh, this is a systemic thing that they're working against us. They see this as a reason to be against unions. So we got to push back against that and say, no, no, no. We need to reclaim what it means to be a union, because a union is the only power you got.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting because to kind of look at the history of unions as you were just referencing, of how, yeah, they have lost their teeth, and they've also kind of, in many people's minds, lost their standing of importance. And seeing, for example, which Jordan's reported on a lot, that when Amazon workers, including at the Staten Island warehouse, are trying to unionize, and then down in Bessemer, Alabama, where the propaganda that Amazon puts out against unionizing, and really hitting on all these psychological points to get people to not want to join a union. It's disgusting, and I think that they've
What they
really kind of
did
sharpened themselves. Yeah.
Oh my god, what they did was so, and again, shout out to you guys, because there was a handful of people talking about this. I mean, I talked about it on my show, y'all talked
Mhm.
about it, but barely anyone covered what was going on in Bessemer, and it
Yeah.
was like something out of a dystopian comic book. I mean, the way they took out the traffic lights
Yes, I was
so
just,
that workers
yeah.
couldn't freaking talk to other workers. So for anyone who's not in the
Mhm.
know, and I know we don't want to harp on this too much, but like there were workers, one of the few places workers could pass out their information, because they couldn't do it inside of Amazon. You weren't allowed to do that. So people would have to pass out flyers while people were stopped at a stoplight going into work. They worked with the city to get those stoplights taken out so that you couldn't talk to
It's
people. And
crazy.
the way that they targeted people on breaks, like if someone asked a pro union question, they would take down your information. I mean, the National Labor Board was against everything Amazon did. Like Amazon was like, "Can we just put this thing in the middle of the workplace with a bunch of cameras and only we have access to it, and that's how people vote?" And the
Right.
labor board was like, "No, you fucking psychos, you can't." Oh, sorry, colleague.
No, it's
No, you can't do that. You
yeah.
really can't do that. And Amazon was like, "Well, we're gonna do it anyway." Did you see? Our guy just went to space in his penis rocket. We're doing it anyway, and
Yeah.
they did. And it's just, I mean, I guess like the labor board kind of ruled they should have to redo that vote. I don't know where it's at presently.
When you think about like a John Deere worker in Iowa or Illinois, which is where these folks are mostly based, um, they're often, across the board. They're not necessarily
Totally.
Democrats. They're not necessarily, they're not, maybe they're independent, maybe they're whatever.
Mhm.
But it's about the working class. It's about people who see that they're being taken advantage of. I'm curious about your thoughts on how like politics and leftism versus rightism plays into this.
Sure. I mean, I think that they've really, and again, this was through the defanging of unions over the past 60 years. I mean, there was a time where the Republicans were pro-union. The Republican Party was actually pro-union. Of course, the Democrats were too. Now, both parties are anti-union. They
Yeah,
they are. I
yeah.
mean, Republicans and Democrats are anti-union. So yeah, I mean, they try to make you think like any type of working class solidarity is automatically communism or whatever other buzzword they're using to scare you. And I mean, yes, I am a huge lefty, and unions are one of the many things I am for. But a union is by no means just a left wing idea. And in fact, you know who really loves unions? People who are in good ones. Those are people
Hmm.
who love unions, and I can tell you, I mean, I'm from the Rust Belt. I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, so there is still some union strong stuff going on in that area, and I can point you in the direction of some steel workers in Youngstown, Ohio. I can point you in the direction
Mm.
of some people in the carpenters union who I've come across in my life. They are as pro-union as you can possibly get, and I mean, I don't even know the personal politics of all of them. I mean, I don't think they're, like, super far right or anything, but I don't even know. I couldn't tell you. I
Hmm.
mean, I don't even think they're all that political. So yeah, I mean, again, that just goes into the, just assault on the working class to kinda just turn people against their own interests.